Great Smokies and the Appalachian Trail. All contacts so far. Let's get a link, so I may not be able to see what happens. Hey everybody, this is Will, KO4DFC, and today I want to talk about emergency communications with WinLink and a Linux laptop that includes Vera HF. Vera HF is something that has, for the most part, been limited to a Windows system, so you have to run Windows in order to use Vera with RMS Express. There's some advantages to using Vera in that it has a much better signal to noise ratio and ability to pull out weaker signals than some of the other modes like RDOT. But in my situation, I had an old Linux laptop sitting on the shelf. It was actually an old Windows laptop that Windows no longer supported because the hardware was old. So I put Linux on it to see if I could get it running, and you know, as part of that, I also decided to build out just an emergency communications kit. So this is an EMP cam. This is inspired by Josh KI6NAZ's EMP cam video on Ham Radio Crash Course, so go check that out if you haven't seen that. This is a very quick and dirty version compared to what Josh did. I did not make this nice inside. It's just a Barron's 6-gallon steel trash can with a locking lid and some cardboard inside and some aluminum foil on top to make sure that signals don't get through. I found that signals would get through sometimes if I tried to call a cell phone in there if I didn't put the aluminum foil on top. So that's why the foil's there. But we're going to take a look at this, and this is really an experiment in doing ham radio on the cheap. You can go out and you can buy a Microsoft Surface for several $100s, and you can buy a signal link to go with it, and where that will connect to your 891, or you could get a DigiRig or a DigiMini or something to hook things up. That's going to put the price for all of this in the hundreds of dollars range, so in addition to the radio. So rather than do that, I've got a $7 USB Sabrent sound card from Amazon. I've got about, I think it was like a $30 custom cable from eBay. And I've got just some other basic stuff in here. I've got a 6-amp-hour Bioenno battery. And I wanted to see if I could get things working without Windows, because if I wanted to take this to the field and the computer gets broken, I want to be able to just replace that for cheap. I don't want to have to go out and buy another, you know, expensive piece of equipment. This is something that I might even try taking up to a summit to run digital modes or something if I wanted to take it out of the EMP cam. But it's also something that can just live in there, and it's gear that I can use, but it's also not like my daily driver ham radio gear, but good as a backup for emergency communications and ready to go for that, and where it can live in an EMP cam. So let's take a quick look at what's in here. I'll just take this lid off. Sorry to do this one-handed. All right. So here's the foil. It's just a couple of sheets of aluminum foil that I laid out on top, and just some cardboard that I cut out to fit in this can. So if we open this up, there's a few things in here. We've got a RigExpert. This is a RigExpert A55 Zoom that I've got in here to check SWR if I'm setting up an antenna. I've got an MFJ 9201 manual tuner. This is helpful with the FT-891 because the 891 does not come with a tuner. That's also helpful for summit activations if I want to use something like a super antenna, and if I have any concerns about getting the SWR dialed in or not. Got my Bioenno 6-amp-hour battery, along with some instructions for what to set up on the computer and on the 891 to run WinLink, because that can get confusing. This is the FT-891 wrapped up in a towel. And I've got an old ASUS Transformerbook which was a Windows laptop, but now it's a Linux laptop. I have a Yaesu FT-65 in here, along with a spare battery. And then I've got some other cables. So this is the cable to charge the ASUS tablet, or not tablet, but it's really more of a netbook. The nice thing about that ASUS Transformerbook is that the battery will last all day if I need it to. And it's lightweight. Little coax connector and some other odds and ends in here. Is your power cables. I've got another coax cable to hook the radio up. This is actually an Anderson power pole to DC barrel jack to charge the FT-65 from battery, because with the FT-65 charger, with the voltages and things, you can actually, I don't know how well this is going to show up on the video. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Yeah, so the output on this is 8.4 volts, but the input is 12 volts. So you can actually, I don't necessarily recommend that you do this, so do this at your own risk, but I will hook this up to a 12 volt battery if I need to recharge the handy-talkie batteries, because the FT-65 doesn't come with a AA battery adapter kit, but this is something where I could charge the 12 volt 6 amp hour battery through solar or something, and then I could hook it up here if I needed to recharge my handy-talkie battery through the charging base. So kind of neat how those things lined up. A couple of wall warts. I've got a WinLink TNC3 in here, which is handy for a number of things. Printer cable, and also this is one of the more important parts. I have the Sabrent USB sound card running to the audio in and out on the custom cable that is a 6-pin mini DIN. Let's see if it can focus here, for the Yaesu FT-891. And with the printer cable and the sound card, I'm able to do cat control, and I'm also able to get the audio in and out from the radio. So we're gonna hook all this up, and we're gonna see if it works. And one other thing, I mean, I'm not super concerned about something like an EMP event. This is in many ways just started kind of as a fun project to see if I could build a Faraday cage. But it's also a nice kit to have around, where in an emergency situation, I could just throw this in my Jeep and I could help out with communications in my area if I needed to. So, but we're gonna see if all this works. And, you know, again, this is ham radio on the cheap, right? With the ASUS Transformerbook, it's cheap. There are other cheap laptops that, you may have friends that have them lying around. The nice thing about, if you figure out a way to get Linux working where it works for your setup, is you could just throw Linux on there and do it, or give it to a new ham, right? So the more we're locked into Windows as a community, though, that raises the expense. Windows is great, but I wanted to see if I could get this working with a cheaper approach. One thing that I didn't show just a second ago, I do have a solar charge controller in here. So this is a Renogy Wanderer. This is the 10 amp version, but it will charge either on 12 or 24 volts, depending on your setup. When you think about an EMP, the big deal about an EMP is that it will blow out capacitors and like electronic components and things. So something like this, I want to have it in my EMP can. Bare wire, like if I need to cut some wire and make some connections to hook things up here, it doesn't necessarily have to go in the EMP can. It could, but it doesn't have to. So in this case, this is just in here as a fallback in case I need a charge controller, but you would want to put any electronic equipment, not necessarily like wires and connectors that don't have components in them, but anything that's got like a circuit board or you know, things like resistors or capacitors on it, I'd put those in the EMP cam. So that's in here. And this is mostly it for part one. Part two, which is coming up, we're going to actually hook all this up, and we're going to try to make a WinLink email.